This video is dedicated to Antonio Rouse. Antonio, thank you. Alright, as I mentioned on the last Lurrus video, decided to make this a Voltron list. In this matchup we have Lurrus of the Dream Den versus Animar, Soul of Elements. That hand is... we've got both of our colours. We've got a pretty good curve as well. We can go Scroll Rack on turn 1 into Duelist's Heritage on turn 2 and then in for Lurrus. So yeah, I think that's okay. Just a tap land start off from our opponent. We get into a land of our own. Let's drop the Ancient Tomb. And we're probably going in for the enchantment next turn. Our opponent manages to make another land and gets themselves into a Lightning Greaves. And then an Orzhov Signet for us. I think, yeah, accelerating typically matters more than going in for the Duelist's Heritage. We actually only need that in after we've gotten down our commander, so we'll go for the ramp here. And this way we can also get down the Seal of Cleansing. We can blow up the Lightning Greaves if we feel like it. Don't know if they're going to get into their blue mana next turn. Actually missing a land drop, surprisingly. So let's get in our Isolated Chapel. And we'll go for our commander here. And we can get down that piece of removal as well. And then we can hold up Scroll Rack during our opponent's turn. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to do that. I don't really mind the cards that are in our hand at the moment. And we've obviously still got the Seal of Cleansing held up as well. Well, it's been a while since Salty the Salt Shaker has come out. Yeah, I was concentrating on multiplayer for a few months and just got back into 1v1 in the past few weeks, and yeah, it didn't take long to start mining salt, did it? Lurrus of the Dream Den versus Rielle the Everwise. I think I've played against Rielle once before in multiplayer on the channel, or once before in 1v1 I should say, and yeah, can be a pretty potent deck, as can most Izzet control builds, but we'll keep that anyway. It's similar to the last hand actually. And oh dear, a turn 1 Ancient Soul Ring for our opponent, so yeah, as if it wasn't going to be a tough enough matchup as it is. We're already seeing a Soul Ring. Wouldn't mind getting down that Grand Abolisher this turn, but obviously our colours are a bit off at the moment. We can make use of the Scroll Rack to try and get ourselves into some lands. If we don't draw into one next turn, we'll get rid of some stuff here. Scroll Rack's the main reason that I kept hold of this hand. Our opponent is now on their colours, and they just dropped straight into their commander. Alright, that's good. We do manage to get into a land, so don't necessarily have to go for Scroll Rack. Let's go for our commander. Yeah, we'll go in for our commander whilst they don't have any mana open. There's plenty of burn in these Rielle decks as well. Burn based on discarding cards and stuff, so they've got both decent removal and counter magic. So it's difficult to know what to cast and when to cast it. Another land for our opponent, and they go for Magus of the Bazaar, which is the Bazaar land. I can't remember the name of it. On legs, draw 2, discard 3. So we'll see if they have any more cards to discard. Okay, they're swinging in at us. We can take out their commander here. They've got 0 power, so I'm guessing that they're trying to get rid of our Lurrus by having us block. So they've obviously got some instant speed discard. We're just going to take it. And there we go, going straight in for something. That is one of the new ones. Draw 3, discard 2. Unless you discard an enchantment, they obviously don't mind discarding the 2 in this deck because that will allow them to draw once a turn with their commander. So their Rielle goes up to 2 power, and they would have traded our commander there. I mean, there's an argument for us trading the commander, but they can get theirs out straight away again next turn thanks to Sol Ring. They're just way ahead of us. We get into a rock of our own, nowhere near as good as Sol Ring, unfortunately. Before we do anything, let's swing in, we'll gain a little bit of life. It's commander damage we need to worry about, but we're not going to be blocking with Lurrus. And then I really want to start making lands as well, especially if our opponent's accelerating past us as well as they are. So let's go for Scroll Rack. We'll just go for the enchantment and the 2 sorceries. And there we go, we've gotten into something half decent there. We've got a land to make. So we'll crack that immediately. Gonna get myself a snow-covered permanent so that we can use on thin ice. We'll get down the Signet first and accelerate our mana a bit more. And then we'll go for on thin ice. Obviously put that onto the swamp land that we just fetched up. And this is a particularly good removal permanent because it is a permanent, so Swords to Plowshares and stuff isn't as useful in this type of Orzhov list. So if at some point someone wipes out all enchantments and artifacts, which does happen sometimes, or someone rifts you or something, then you'll actually get that back. Just going straight in for their commander again. That's the problem with the Sol Ring, and they're making land drops. Yeah, it's going to be really difficult to deal with this opponent. Grand Abolisher might help us with counter magic, and they won't be able to do things on our turn if we manage to land that. Then going straight round to our turn, they activate the Bazaar straight away. So they will draw 5 cards effectively here. And then we get ourselves into Phyrexian Reclamation, which is good if they continue to get rid of our Lurrus. Let's get out the Stoneforge Mystic and see if we can actually become some kind of threat to our opponent. I'm not really sure what to grab here, to be honest. We want both evasion and a buff. I think we concentrate on the buff to try and keep their commander from swinging in, although it's probably going to have enough power over the course of the next few turns to just swing straight into us, even with a Black Blade Reforged or a Cranial Plating. Anyway, we'll play the Black Blade out, and yeah, we'll just leave it like that, I think. Just have to hope that our opponent doesn't go off next turn. Brainstorm at the end of the turn for our opponent. Maybe we should have gone in for Grand Abolisher on our turn and concentrated on getting that out. That's never good to see. Iron Crag Pyromancer, Iron Crag, don't know how you say it, but yeah, this is a really, really good card. Especially when you can consistently draw multiple cards a turn, which this deck obviously can. It's a free lightning bolt every single turn at the moment. Yeah, that's a pretty good board state they've got now. I don't know how we're going to get past this. Magus of the Bazaar lets them draw 5 cards during our turn and get a lightning bolt off, and then the loot from their commander or from their planeswalker, which they are activating now, will get them into the second card for a different lightning bolt. So I think we just have to send Lurrus to the graveyard. But we've been too slow in this one, I think. So with Lurrus down, we've only got the Stoneforge Mystic as a blocker. I think we'll just take it, because I imagine Rielle is going to get even bigger from this point on. So it may well be that they can take us out with commander damage next turn. We'll just have to hope that they don't get rid of a Stoneforge. Let's activate the Scroll Rack and see what's on top. We'll just put the 2 cards on top, and we get into Anguished Unmaking. That's useful. The problem is, what do we use that on? Probably has to be the Lightning Bolt creature. Yeah, it's pretty tough. Obviously we draw back into the Grand Abolisher that we just put back. So we just have to force the issue. I think the first thing we go for is Anguished Unmaking onto the Pyromancer. And they can go for Magus of the Bazaar at instant speed, which gets rid of our blocker. And then from this point on, we might as well just go for Phyrexian Reclamation, and yeah, it's tough to say if we should have gone for Grand Abolisher or not. I think we probably should have done, but we have gotten use of the Scroll Rack. Maybe playing the Grand Abolisher instead of the sword would have been the better idea. But they could have dealt with Grand Abolisher anyway, but I think we would have been left with a Stoneforge Mystic in play to block the commander. So yeah, a few small misplays, but I don't really think we could have done anything about this. Our opponent's gotten off to a really good start. Activating their Bazaar during our turn now, so they must have instant speed discard during our turn that they can cast. Either that or they're just looking for a win right now. Then giving their commander +2 and first strike. Oh, so does that have us here? Nope, only takes us to 18. Maybe they've got a big red burn spell or something. We're only at 10 life now. They don't necessarily have to care about commander damage. Yeah, I think that is. Conflagrate is X10. Deals X damage divided as you choose amongst any number of targets. And they've cast it with flashback. Oh, and the flashback is only red and discard X cards. They've gone down to 1 card in hand. So they must have had 11 cards in hand. And anyway, they're dealing the last 10 points of damage to us. Probably holding on to counter magic. So that is the game. Very convincing one from Rielle. So hopefully there's some Rielle fans out there that are really enjoying this commander. That was another pretty quick one. So I think it's safe to say that we can get on with another game. I'm kind of play testing this deck still, and looking for some of you to suggest some potential cheap Voltron entries. Anyway, we'll get on with the next one. Lurrus of the Dream Den versus Geist of St. Traft. Yeah, Geist is usually a surprisingly aggressive aggro deck, but I think we can keep that hand, because we do have white from our talisman. Our opponent goes in for Evolving Wilds to start things off, so that might suggest that this is a more casual deck. But then they get into an unhinged land, so, or unglued, whatever that is. So maybe it's not that casual a deck. We'll go in for Ancient Tomb and a Talisman, and then we can actually go in for our commander on turn 2 if we want to. Might wait until we've gotten out of Lightning Greaves or open the Armory. We do have protection with the Totem Armor at least. And then a tap land from our opponent, further suggesting that it might be a casual list, but well, we'll soon find out because we're not going to win anytime soon, I don't think. Just going to go in for the Open the Armory before our commander, I think, because I would like to play our commander and then go straight in for some protection on it. So we'll grab ourselves the infamous Kaya's Ghost Form, and then we can go Lightning Greaves as well. So we've got Haste Shroud and Kaya's Ghost Form on our creature next turn if we want it. Kaya's Ghost Form is really going to make it difficult for our opponent to remove our commander. And there is, on turn 3, the Geist of St. Traft will be able to start swinging in for 6 points of damage next turn. It's time for our commander to come into play here. Not too worried about losing life from the Ancient Tomb because we can buff our commander a lot and it has lifelink built in, so that actually is relevant in most games. Especially when you've got Talismans and Ancient Tombs in play. We'll make sure that the commander goes to both the graveyard and exile, because the enchantment does need to see that in order to bring our commander back. Now put the Greaves on, and I don't know if we offer up the trade here actually. I think I am going to. We'll offer up the trade and see if they want to bin that. We've got a land for next turn, so we can get our commander down again straight away. But they decide not to take us up on the offer. And then they get themselves into... this is one of the newer ones. I like all these keyword counters that they've started releasing. I think it's a really good idea. Haven't seen too much of them yet though. Wingspan Mentor. When it enters, you put a flying counter on a non-human you control. And that is actually going to be useful with Geist of St. Traft because it means they can consistently swing in. I don't think there's such a thing as unblockable counters, but I also don't think we have many flyers in this deck anyway. Not worried about commander damage with Geist of St. Traft though. And Entomb for us. So we can put any card we like into the graveyard. It's going to be something with CMC 2 or less, because then we can cast it straight out of the bin. Maybe All That Glitters is the way to go here. Yeah, I'm actually going to go for Stoneforge Mystic. I want to see if we want to concentrate on equipments or auras or a combination of the two, and I don't think too much of Stoneforge at the moment, but it might just be bad experiences in the deck performance. Anyway, we'll get out the Stoneforge and see how it performs in this game. Typically either going to go for Cranial Plating or Blackblade Reforged. So we'll just go for the Cranial Plating because we can play and equip that. And we need to keep Stoneforge Mystic in play. There's a little bit of an issue there with Shroud on the Lightning Greaves because we actually can't equip to our Lurrus whilst it has Shroud. So if we can keep another body in play to move the Greaves around, then that will be useful to us. Anyway, we don't need to worry about losing our Lurrus when we swing in here, so let's do just that, and we'll gain a nice chunk of life, go back up to 22, and we'll put them at 9 points of commander damage as well. Then they start to accelerate way beyond us in Gilded Lotus. Then getting down Warkite Marauder. Whenever it attacks, choose a target creature and it loses all abilities and becomes a 0/1. That's fine. We've got Shroud, so I'm not worried about that. And then deciding to continue to swing in and pummel us. 6 damage a turn, but as long as we can gain more than 6 life a turn, which we can at the moment, then yeah, not really all that worried about that. Oh, that's a good one. Sentinel's Eyes. Much better when you don't have flyers in the air. Looks like this might be a flying deck, but yeah, Vigilance is absolutely relevant. Not as relevant with the flyers in the air though, like I said, so I think we concentrate on getting down First Strike onto our commander. We'll have to shift the boots over first. So Hyena Umbra is good protection. If they manage to get rid of Kaya's Wrath, or Kaya's Ghost form even, then we've still got the Totem Armor, so it's just twice as difficult to get rid of our commander here. Plus the Totem Armor gives us +1. So it means that they couldn't take us out with that blocker. Now deciding to cast Nyx Bloom. I'm yet to see Nyx Bloom do very well, to be honest. They've only got 2 Devotion to Blue of 2. And then it jumps up to 4. Plus they can untap it. So yeah, if you're going to get down Nyx Bloom, following it up with a Tezzeret is a pretty good means of making that a very good artifact. So now it's about to pay for itself by generating 4 mana. And they go for extra planar lens. So they'll get double mana from the islands, but going down a land to do it. So they've only got 2 basics. Maybe they've got another one in hand. Only 1 card in hand, speaking of which. I think we need to deal with that Tezzeret as quickly as we can because they can tutor for something quite big now. And continuing to swing in, as you would expect, they have to exile the token at the end of the turn. Now then, we can do something tricky this turn. We can shove the Cranial Plating onto whichever creature isn't blocked at instant speed with its ability. Let's concentrate on getting this white enchantment onto our creature first. Like I said, the Vigilance can be relevant. And then Lightning Greaves back over onto our commander, because we care more about that than the Stoneforge. Plus, I want to be able to move the Cranial Plating onto the Stoneforge when it inevitably doesn't get blocked. I mean, they're going to be blocking Lurrus here, surely. I'm just going to swing both in at Tezzeret because we can't take our opponent out this turn. And they do, of course, block the Lurrus in order to try and keep their Tezzeret in play. So, in response to that, for 2 black mana, we can put Cranial Plating onto our Stoneforge Mystic. Nice little combat trick. And they've got something in response to that. Okay, just putting a counter onto their commander. Might as well give it a slight buff before this thing goes down. And we knock Tezzeret all the way down to 1, so obviously I'd rather take it out, but yeah, at least they can't shoot her for something really big now. I don't know if they would have done that, but That's definitely one less thing to worry about. Flux Channeler, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, proliferate. Yeah, that goes well with the plus counter and the Tezzeret. No cards in hand though means that we don't really have to worry about that. They just go for the plus on Tezzeret to untap their artifact. And we get into Anguished Unmaking for if we're desperate, but we'll continue to swing in at the Tezzeret because I want to encourage them to block with both creatures. We either get rid of their commander or we get rid of Tezzeret. I mean, I'm fine with either or. Deciding to leave both creatures in play and let the Tezzeret go, like I said, I'm fine with either outcome there. So now we need to go back to concentrating on commander damage on our opponent. But we also need to concentrate on card advantage, so let's finally get down this Necropotence. We'll also put the Greaves over there so that we can put Cranial Plating back. We've got to be careful with Necropotence. I don't tend to put 20 life into Necropotence and craft myself a hand anyway. I just tend to keep myself at, I don't know, maybe I'll have 8 or 9 cards at the end of the turn and then I'll just exile a few from hand when going down to hand size. But we do have to be careful about what we discard because it will be exiled with Necropotence. It's a little bit of a nombo in that regard, but if we draw enough cards we can just get rid of lands. Certainly don't want to be discarding stuff that we want to cast with Lurrus later on, but Necropotence still remains the best way of keeping your hand full in black. Just basically get ourselves into more mana. That Conqueror's Flail might be useful, but our opponent decides to scoop it up anyway. I was going to say the Conqueror's Flail might be useful if our opponent has counter magic, although we haven't seen any yet. They decide to knock it on the head there. I don't think we could have gotten them next turn, because even if we remove something with the Anguished Unmaking, they just block with the other creature. But yeah, it's probably only a matter of time, and our opponent sees that. That was a pretty convincing one. I did like the look of our opponent's Geist of Saint Traft build. But yeah, I'm pretty convinced that we were going to win that one, so I'm fine with that ending where it did. Hopefully you are enjoying this Lurrus Voltron build. Be sure to leave it a thumbs up and subscribe if you do want to see more from this build, because I do want to get some more recordings with it. I am enjoying playing it much more than I was the last variant, so anyway, you can be sure to let me know if you want to see more from it, and I will be sure to get some recorded and uploaded for you all. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.